Hey everyone, Nicole Russo in Lexington, Kentucky, and Dan Illman in our New York studio for this week's edition of the Oaks Countdown on DRFTV. We're going to start out this week by taking a quick look at the current point standings toward a spot in the 14-horse starting gate for the Kentucky Oaks. And things are really starting to move and heat up now that the Philly Classic is less than 2 months away. Now, Churchill Downs released the 115 early nominations for the Oaks last week. Divine Image and the other top finishers in the UAE Oaks were not on it. They could still be nominated with a hefty late or supplemental payment closer to the race, but for now they've been removed from this list, which accounts for some of the changes from last week. And you'll see right away that the newcomer up toward the top is Jeltrin, who sprang a huge upset in last Saturday's Devona Dale at Gulfstream. This filly's only previous win came in a sprint at Gulfstream West last fall, where you could have claimed her for $50,000. She paid $105 for this huge upset. Meanwhile, champion Jaywalk, you're watching back there, finished a dull fourth in her season debut. Dan, I hate to fall back on the cliche, but I guess that's why they run the races.
I guess that's why they run the races. And afterwards on Twitter, someone asked me, what is a Jeltrin? And a Jeltrin is a long shot that takes advantage of a perfect trip in a race where a seemingly unbeatable favorite stubs his or her toe. Not to take anything away from Jeltrin. She took down a wonderful scalp in champion Jaywalk, and she ran a really nice race, but I think skeptical handicappers are going to want to see that again. She did get a very nice trip. We saw her hanging on her left lead all the way down to the wire, and she just got up at the wire to win by a scant nose over Cookie Dough, who you could argue ran the better race.
Yeah, Cookie Dough, a very nice filly, another filly who, by the way, is not Oaks nominated at this point. But, you know, Cookie Dough, a filly who's run some nice races. So, you know, Jeltrin certainly beat, you know, perhaps a legitimate foe there on the wire. Jeltrin fourth in the forward gal last out, took a step forward off that. Jaywalk, you know, taking the step backward, and trainer John Service did tell our colleague Marty McGee that perhaps he miscalculated the champion's fitness level for her first start off about a 4-month break since winning the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies the first weekend in November.
Last week on Oaks Countdown, we mentioned that perhaps Jaywalk was just a little bit dressed up off her championship performance efforts in the Frizette and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She went gate to wire in the Frizette on a speed favoring day at Belmont, and in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies she had a very easy trip when Serengeti Empress, the expected speed, inexplicably took back off of the pace. That being said, if you were a Jaywalk fan before the Devona Dale, I'm not going to jump off the bandwagon just yet. That race was eerily reminiscent of Code of Honor's off-the-board finish in the Mucho Macho Man Stakes, at a short price in his seasonal debut, in a race in which it appeared he might have been undertrained by Shug McGahee, who knows what the main goal is down the road. I'm willing to give Jaywalk a mulligan off the Devona Dale, and I expect her to improve by leaps and bounds next time out.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, you know, people knowing what the goal is down the road. John Service, you know, he's won the Kentucky Derby. He won the Kentucky Oaks a couple years ago with Catherine Sophia, who may be disappointed in her last prep for the race in the Ashland, but she was tighter for the Oaks coming out of that race. So as you said, you know, if you like Jaywalk, I wouldn't abandon ship. I do think that, you know, maybe young horses coming back off that break, maybe they deserve a mulligan. That being said, you're really going to have to be watching what Jaywalk does next out. The Gulfstream Oaks on March 30th, where she would likely face Jeltrin again. You know, a possible spot for her to come back, along with the Ashland at Keeneland. Service has mentioned. We do know Jaywalk likes 2 turns. We know she likes Churchill Downs. As we just mentioned, you know, Jeltrin likely to come back in the Gulfstream Oaks. And she's got, I've looked at her pedigree. She's got a little bit of a light pedigree on the female side, but she is by Tapizar, who's the sire of last year's Kentucky Oaks winner and champion Monomoy Girl.
And I believe the dam's a half-sister to Tap for Luck, who won the Demoiselle, or a stakes place, pardon me, in the Demoiselle, going 1 1/8 as a 2-year-old. So there is a little bit of pedigree here. Again, she has to prove it again to me. As for a horse like Cookie Dough, another one that might might come back in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. I wonder if shorter distances are going to be her forte down the road. Her third dam won the Delaware Handicap, but her second dam, Jenna, was a very fast New York bred, and Cookie Dough is getting a little bit tired at the end of the Devona Dale. I wonder if one-turn miles might be her limit, although she is an intriguing prospect at a price next time out.
Yeah, definitely. I think circle the Gulfstream Oaks. I think it's going to tell us a lot about a lot of these fillies moving forward. As we mentioned, there is still a late nomination and supplemental nomination window to the Kentucky Oaks. Again, moving forward, we've got 4 prep races coming up this weekend, which happen to run concurrently with the Kentucky Oaks future wager from Churchill. Jaywalk still well regarded there as one of the 4 betting interests as co-8-to-1 second choices. Bellafina, the 5-to-1 top individual wagering interest, followed by Jaywalk chasing yesterday, Restless Rider, and the field option at 8-to-1. Jeltrin debuting at 15-to-1 off her breakthrough win. Dan, is there anything in the future wager that stood out to you or surprised you? Anything that you see as particularly good value at this point in time?
Not really. Future wagers are not exactly my kind of play, but I think the Bellafina right now is the boss. I know there are some legitimate concerns, and down the road here on the Oaks Countdown, we will discuss her pedigree in full. There are some concerns about her true ability to get a mile and an eighth, but as of right now, and we are very early, I would have to say that she's head and shoulders above the rest of the 3-year-old fillies. I think the Santa Isabel on Sunday is going to tell us a lot about potential challengers to Bellafina's throne. I mean, chasing yesterday, we all know her, of course, as American Pharaoh's little sibling, and she is already a Grade 1 stakes winner. She may get a challenge from Anaya Al-Rab, who is Grade 1 stakes place, gave Bellafina all she could handle in her most recent start, and the rumor is that Doug O'Neill is considering removing blinkers for Sunday's race in order to wake her up and perhaps spur some improvement. She's got a pedigree that sort of screams Kentucky Oaks, and she might be one to watch this weekend.
Well, yeah, you referenced the 2 things that immediately come to mind with Anaya Al-Rab, who's been just knocking on the door against some really nice fillies. They're going to remove the blinkers and maybe see if they can get her a little earlier to launch her late run from that spot. And you mentioned her pedigree. She's from the immediate family of the great Rachel Alexandra, so certainly a pedigree that screams filly classic potential. The Santa Isabel on Sunday, one of 3 races this weekend, along with the Honeybee and the Busher at Oaklawn and Aqueduct, respectively, worth 50 points to the winner, which would basically assure you a spot in the Oaks field. The Bourbonnette Oaks on Turfway's synthetic surface on Saturday will award 20 points. Fields for all of the Saturday races will be drawn tomorrow. The Santa Isabel will be looking for that field to be drawn on Thursday. And next Tuesday, we'll be reviewing who stepped up out of some of those key races next week on the Oaks Countdown.